That's better. All right. Well, in theory,
We are live.
we're live.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry. All right. So let's see here. Let's see just how live we really are. I'm waiting for it. Oh, and an ad's playing, so we're live. All right. Well, hello everybody. Welcome to WordCast. This is number 43. Lots of big news this time. We're here again. We didn't miss another week, so that's pretty good. Did we miss last week? No, we didn't. It was the week before that. Last week. Okay. So anyway, I guess I actually wanted to start off though before we got into a bunch of the news and stuff, saying why there wasn't a video on Monday, and you guys will be seeing a video about this. I might have lost everything, all my data, gone. So I had a RAID configuration on a Linux server that I hadn't bought in a UPS for yet. It was a RAID 1, a mirrored configuration so that the data was copied to 2 drives. And I may have made the mistake of not connecting it to a UPS and then had a LAN party to which I forgot to load balance my circuits. Now, keep in mind, this is the guy, some people will be like, oh, that's understandable. No, this is the guy that has dedicated circuits installed in his basement for LAN parties specifically, and I forgot to use them. Yeah, so anyway, so we kind of lost power, and now Ubuntu will not boot, and I'm having trouble accessing any of the data on my drives. Now, I think I'm going to be able to recover some of it, but all of the data that I was using for a case review of my Thermaltake, the Tower 900, was on that server, so I couldn't get that review video done, and I didn't have time to film another one when it was evening time Sunday, and the video was supposed to be out Monday at 7 a.m., so just wanted to give an explanation there, and hopefully I get everything back, but I'll be making a video on my process doing that, so that'll be fun. That'll do it. So, that sucks, but whatever. So anyway, we've got lots of news. He knows the most about the first topic here, but yeah, so you go ahead, because I don't know anything about this other than it's cool.
All right, so I am super excited about this. We finally got a reveal of the first generation Magic Leap hardware. Now, for those that have no idea what Magic Leap is, that's understandable, because nobody really did. Now, what we did know up until this point was that they were working on augmented reality hardware, very likely something akin to HoloLens, and that they got a lot of money. For a company that has shown absolutely nothing to the public, and most startups nowadays are like software companies, so they get funding super early because they're releasing stuff in alpha and beta and whatever. No, they have shown nothing. And they got $1.9 billion in funding, and they're currently valued at like $6 billion.
It's kind of insane.
Money from companies like Google, Alibaba, Qualcomm, Fidelity Investments, and a lot more. They've just been getting money thrown at them every time they need it. And nobody really knew why. They've kind of hinted at what they were doing. They claimed that they essentially wanted to develop the system that we would use after the phone, essentially the next core computing device in our lives. Well, now we know quite a lot more. There was this big article. Their website now has images of what the first generation hardware is expected to look like. So some key information we learned: the field of view on this is going to be larger than the HoloLens. However, it's not going to be full eye coverage yet. They said that next generation, like essentially consumer-grade hardware, will have higher field of view, but this initial release is going to be smaller. A lot of people, based off of just what they've said and where HoloLens is at, are expecting somewhere in the range of 50 to 60 degrees.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Which isn't terrible, but also isn't great.
Yeah. Now, what's really cool, though, so HoloLens works by, from my understanding, projecting something onto the glass, right? Is that how you understand it?
That sounds familiar to me. That sounds right to me. Like I said, I don't know a ton about it.
The way that Magic Leap works is that it actually beams the images onto your eye. And
now
yes,
that's
they're testing that it's safe.
That's actually something I didn't know. That's
one
really
of the big advantages to this is that it's a lot easier to make images appear as a solid thing rather than transparent.
Interesting.
So one of the things that was talked about in the article that I'm looking at that was someone got to test it was that essentially you could overlay something over a person, and while your brain is seeing both, it recognizes what's being beamed to your eyes as the real thing. And so in this case, from my understanding, there was essentially overlaid over a person was like a robot or something. And like the guy could clearly see where the person was because you could see the legs from below the field of view.
Right.
But to him, as far as what was in the field of view, it was the robot as a solid thing. Just that. And from what he was told, it was that his brain is seeing both, but that his brain was registering that the real thing was what was coming from the magic leap.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this could be used for a lot of different things.
A lot of stuff.
Games are going to be really interesting with this. They were talking about like things like web shopping, being able to like grab, like HoloLens has shown a lot of this too, being able to like virtually grab an item and kind of interact with it in a more real way. But the more realistic it looks, the better. And a big thing with what we now know about the Magic Leap Gen 1 hardware, and I know I showed you that one picture, there was a guy with that thing on his side.
Yes.
That was the computing hardware. They're not trying to right now cram it into the headset,
which I think is a smart
cost
move.
Of performance.
Yeah.
Especially being that it's a dev kit. They are trying to get they're talking gaming grade PC level hardware is all they're saying.
Right.
We don't know specific specs, but they're saying it's supposed to be some very high-end hardware, and so we'll see. But all of the first impressions have been that this seems pretty damn cool.
Which is interesting. Now, the thing I will say is a lot of the first impressions of HoloLens were, whoa, this is really cool, and it still isn't
a lot of people that have tried this have also tried HoloLens. And
that's
HoloLens
true, that's
is a
true.
thing, it's just in very small scale.
That's what I mean. That's
it's
what
not
I
a
mean.
consumer
That's what
product,
I mean.
neither is this.
Like, this isn't either, and so don't expect it to be something you can buy next year, or you can buy maybe even 2 years from now. It's going to be a while.
You can buy it, it's going to be way more expensive and not
Well, and it's going to be hard to buy, though. Depending on how many they manufacture.
I don't think it's going to be as hard
like, the
to buy
HoloLens
as
is actually
the HoloLens.
hard to buy.
Yeah, but they have a lot stricter requirements than it seems. Because like this, they're talking like in the description for signing up for information about orders.
Right.
They mention not just like developers and enterprise and stuff, but they even mention like specifically creatives. So they're thinking about this from like either an art or a content creation side.
They're being smart about it. Yeah. Okay.
So we'll have to see. Battery life is probably going to be trash to start. When you have very high-end hardware, so much high-end hardware that it can't fit in the headset itself.
While that's true, the main reason that they did it in a side pack might be for battery.
It might be.
Because it could. So I mean, the hardware might fit in a headset. But fine. In fact, the hardware could be in the headset.
They specified that the hardware.
Did they? Okay, I didn't know if it was specified if it was just the battery or not. Yeah, because I mean, it might not be that high power consuming hardware either, depending on what it is.
I mean, they are trying to say.
It's probably
PC grade gaming graphics,
isn't it? Though
we don't know at all.
PC grade, but PC grade means 1080p, like 60 frames.
Depends
it depends on who you're talking to. Yeah.
Because if you look at like when Apple says that their iOS hardware is PC grade, it performs at a way higher level than anything Qualcomm puts out.
Yeah,
so that is kind of an actual
but it's
difference.
Still not PC grade, right? So I mean that I don't like that term because I think that tries to grab the PC gamers that aren't super intelligent about PCs necessarily. They just game on PC because they like the platform better or whatever, or they like the advantages they get, and it kind of grabs them. Oh, PC grade, that's amazing, and it's like, I'm sorry, but that thing's not pushing out a 1080 Ti, you know?
Yeah.
So
with the power and performance of a laptop computer. From editing an elaborate 3D model to playing a
completely
first-person
acceptable
shooter.
because the majority of laptops are ultrabooks, so that is something I can actually completely buy.
Yeah, and I mean, like they're showing in the graphics, like you can clearly see this is very decent lighting. We don't know if it's obviously not real time.
Yeah,
but very decent lighting.
But it's definitely virtual. Yeah, like that's not real,
but your brain also, even though it isn't real. And
it's registering that as the object.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean,
cool.
if you had like a model of a robot, say, that was obviously not real and looked like one from a game, I mean, you can still that's a physical object in space, and your brain registers that. Yeah. And in this case, it's tricking you into assuming that is a physical object in space,
which is awesome.
Which is really cool.
Yeah. So other than that, all we really know is it's shipping in 2018.
I just wonder, beams at my eyes. That's interesting. It's got to have hella eye tracking. Just say.
Oh yeah. And it's got 6 external cameras so that it can track not just like your hands, but also the world around you.
which hand tracking is really important.
Mhm.
That's like one of the key things I think that a lot of VR just doesn't get. You got to be able to feel like you're grabbing something.
For the Rift and the Vive, you can attach.
I know you can.
Leap motion.
Yeah, and that makes a big difference, and that's because Leap has some pretty amazing tech. Let's be honest. So.
But yeah, I'm really excited to see where this goes. Other than that, this is just really big because for years we've known about this company.
Yes.
But they've never shown anything. So a lot of people
it's like, what have they been working on?
Is this a scam?
Is it vaporware at that point?
Yeah.
Like, people were wondering, like, is this just not going to exist?
Yeah.
So,
and
this
now
is good.
we have
this is good.
something of
like,
substance.
hey, no, we've been doing stuff. We promise.
Journalists have actually tried it.
They had to keep it super secret, so it's understandable that there was no talk about it. There wasn't even leaks.
Yeah.
There were. I mean, it's probably a trusted group of friends, not just coworkers. You know, at that point, because when there's no leaks about a tech product at all, like, you have to go, whoa.
Well, what's more interesting though, so there was no leaks despite getting investment from 10, 15 different companies. A lot of people have seen this.
That's a good
and
point.
A lot of people
and
have
nobody talked about
seen it and liked it enough that they wanted to let this team continue doing their work uninterrupted.
Yeah, that's impressive. That's really impressive. All right, so shall we move on to the PC news we have here? And guys, everybody that's watching, like, make some, comments and stuff over on Twitch, especially. Just you guys, we want to interact with you guys a little bit. And I know we were gone for a couple weeks, so I think some of the norms have kind of faded off a little bit. And please come back, guys. Anyway, so shall we move on to the next topic? Are you good there?
Yeah, if I could have one right now to try, I would love to.
I mean, that'd be awesome.
I know.
Any idea what the price is going to be?
No. Realistically, based off of what they're saying, what the market's at, I'm guessing between 1,500 and 2,000.
That's
a lot
acceptable.
of people, for some reason, seem to think 1,000. No.
I doubt that.
Now, the reason they think that is that Magic Leap has said that they want to release it at a price comparable to very high-end smartphones.
But this isn't technically releasing it.
Yeah,
this is the dev.
This is essentially the dev kit. Now, they're not calling it just straight, like, dev kit 1 or anything.
But it is the dev kit,
yes. Yeah. So, I'm thinking 15 to 2,000, probably closer to the 2,000 range.
That's acceptable.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so Seagate has done something interesting, guys, and you wrote the notes for this, but I'm going to be writing an article on the site for this soon. So Seagate is attempting to double your hard drive speed, and by that it doesn't mean IOPS or anything like that, because that doesn't double in this way. It just means throughput in megabytes per second. So the idea here is, so you have actuators in a hard drive. Basically, it's the motor that actually moves the needle that reads and writes from the hard drive, right? And they move very, very quickly. Well, the actuator actually connects to every single needle on both the top and bottom of the platter and moves them simultaneously. So if you need to get data somewhere from the top of one of the platters and get another part of data from bottom of another part of the platter, the actuators it has to move to 2 separate locations to grab that.
They are claiming doubling the IOPS.
Are they?
Yes.
I don't know how they would do that, though.
Because you're getting, by reading the disk twice as much, you're still also getting 2 times.
But, like, as an example, RAID 1 does not increase IOPS.
But this isn't RAID 1, this is RAID 0.
I mean, sorry, RAID 0. RAID 0 does not increase IOPS. So, I don't know. That's interesting. That's surprising.
They're, literally saying, magically doubling the IOPS the customer gets from it. Exact words on their blog post.
Interesting. Well, anyway,
because IOPS is input-output operation, so they are doubling the amount that the
this is true, but RAID doesn't scale that way, if I remember correctly.
But this is an actual RAID. It's like RAID.
No, I know. Yeah.
But it's not.
So anyway, what they're doing though is that Seagate is splitting it into 2 sets of actuators. So you've got, like, let's say the top 4 platters and the bottom, or let's say 3, because that's 4 is kind of unrealistic. Top 3 platters, bottom 3 platters have their 6 read and write heads, 1 for each side of each platter. For those, and they move separately so that they're able to grab data from different areas. And that's also what it's related to, is pulling data from 2 different areas. So it depends on where that data is. Because if you think about it, so if that data is all on, say, the top platter, that's still a 1 actuator pulling from it. Yeah. So it has to write it properly, separately to each platter, which is more risky, too.
Yes. Now, this is designed for enterprise to start.
Yeah,
So
we're not going to see this in
realistically-
consumer stuff for a while, and I
Yeah.
don't know if there's even necessarily a huge market for it in consumer stuff, simply because SSDs at this point.
But if they get the price down, and you could spend $150 on a 4 or 5 terabyte drive that gets 2 times the speed of current hard drives.
Yes, but in IOPS, it's still nothing compared to an SSD.
I know.
In raw
But-
throughput, it's close.
But for actual users, that 2 times performance would be noticeable.
It'd be noticeable.
It wouldn't be if you could get 4 times the storage and not the same performance, but fairly close as far as actual real world performance.
Well, that's...
Not talking about like for load time. I'm talking about like
no,
for
just
general
real
use,
world
for
general use. It's still substantially slower because
you're
I mean hard drives only get like a few hundred IOPS.
But
Like it's really low.
look at who would be needing very large space. I'm not talking about
I mean,
gamers.
it's still
I'm
a
not talking about-
substantial improvement. Yes.
I'm not talking about
yes.
gamers because gamers SSDs would be where you'd want to go.
Eh?
But
Yeah, for
For-
boot at least.
yeah.
Yeah.
but like if like you've got a bunch of movies and you also just want a little bit faster than a normal hard drive.
I could see it being really good for servers too, for Plex servers and
Yeah.
stuff where you've got stuff stored. Because I mean, you're gonna see double the raw sequential throughput, and that's the
Yeah,
important
and keep in mind
part
this is
there.
going to work with Hammer, so we're talking, very, very, very high storage drives.
Yes, and also Hammer's going to increase speed because
And-
you have better aerial density, so
Yes.
you're reading. You can read from more area quicker because you're reading from a smaller
And
physical area.
the dual actuators is only the start.
Yeah, the idea I would assume would be each actuator completely
Yes, and
individual.
so think Hammer.
That's just a lot of math.
Think Hammer plus those.
Plus that could be really substantial, although SSDs are still insane.
Yeah.
And 3D
It
Crosspoint's
depends
even
on where
more
the price
insane.
gets though, because
Exactly.
As we've
Because like
seen-
I'm buying a Optane 3D Crosspoint drive soon, but like that is
Yeah.
still a lot more expensive than your standard
Yeah.
even NVMe based
'cause,
SSD.
like as the mobile market continues to boom, and then as we see these new industries that are going to need storage, like the Magic Leap,
Yeah.
it's going to use flash storage because it's on the go, and it's going to use memory because it's another computing device.
Hard drives still make a lot of sense for a lot of reasons too. They're perfectly acceptable performance-wise for a variety of things, especially game load times. A lot of games do not benefit at all from increased increased speed for game load.
Unless
times.
you're trying to pick a character in Overwatch.
Yeah, right. Specific games. But a lot of them don't even increase speed. Like I have RAID configurations for all my gaming machines, including this laptop here, and it's like game load times sometimes are a little quicker, but in general, not really.
Yeah. I liked one person's idea of you would probably have to do either smaller discs or a much larger sized drive, but having actuators on both sides, and then having 2 motors but one for each set of actuators, so you can actually read the same disc at 2 times the speed. Because you're reading from both sides of the disc.
Yes, so I would be reading from the same disk.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. But yeah, that's
then
possible.
I
yeah.
saw a hilarious picture that was like a whole bunch of actuators all around the disc.
I mean, that's probably been done before. I'm sure that's been tried
Yeah,
before, though.
this,
actually doing
keep in
multi
mind, the
actuator.
dual actuator thing isn't new. It was just too expensive to put in a product.
Yeah, it makes sense now that we can do it,
Yeah.
and I mean, considering we have the technology for RAID, I mean, they can basically copy paste the code
Yeah.
for that, and it's good to go. Interesting. I'm excited for this. I do like that Seagate seems to continually be pushing the limits, and I know we've talked about magnetic assisted, I can't believe I said that. Microwave assisted magnetic recording from like Western Digital, but I've felt that Seagate has been doing a better job with generalized innovation recently when it comes to solid state hybrid drives. This dual actuator stuff here, Hammer, which has that's great, has longer term benefits density wise than MAMR does. Heat assisted magnetic recording is going to be able to be more dense if they can ever get it perfectly working, which I assume they're still investing in it. So it's all interesting to me. I actually want to let's see. I want to see when it comes to RAID performance, IOPS. Let's see. IOPS are very hard. Oh, okay, very hard to define. That's true. So that's why it's challenging. So in this article here from Storage Craft about understanding RAID performance at various levels. If I search IOPS, there's 72 times that they mention IOPS in the article. I don't know if I can find a downright answer. Yeah, so I don't know. Interesting. Okay, so next topic is one that's actually a little bit more interesting to me personally, and I'm really excited for this. So Navi, AMD's new architecture, has been spotted in a Linux driver. There was actually an article that I wrote over on the website about this if you guys are interested in reading a little bit more details, but I'll get most of it out here. So basically, the Linux drivers have to be updated several months before a product comes out. Like, it's at least like 3 to 4 months. Oftentimes it's updated even sooner, so this does not mean that we're getting Navi in like January or February, but it does mean that sometime end of the summer, end of Q3, beginning of Q4, we might see Navi released. More on that might part later, but that's AMD's roadmap, as they are supposed to be releasing Navi in theory at the beginning of 2018, although it looks like who knows if that's going to happen. I'm still feeling late 2018, but the actual line of code from the driver is, and I quote, new _chip.gfx10.mm super underscore secret dot enable bracket 0:0 bracket end quote. So
it's a secret.
It's a secret. They specifically mentioned, and this is by, as far as I understand, by the Radeon Technologies group that actually had this as super secret GPU, which is interesting.
What if it's like a super low end?
Well, that's the thing. It actually, so that's where this comes from. So it could be Vega. This could be hinting at a new Vega card, potentially a really high-end Vega card, or a mid-range to low-end Vega card. Okay. Now, what's wrong?
I can't get signed in. I'll deal with it later.
Okay. So what's interesting is, so it could be Vega, but it's likely to be Navi. I don't think we're going to see more Vega products myself other than mobile, which honestly makes sense. I don't think Vega makes sense for desktops at all. It makes a lot of sense for mobile. It's actually a pretty decent technology when it comes to mobile. When you scale back the clock speeds on Vega, it actually performs pretty well efficiency-wise. Now, in theory, Navi is supposed to be on the 7LP die. Now, what that means is it's a 7LP node. That's 7 nanometers. For those of you who don't know, it's 7LP because it's different. As far as I understand, although I haven't been able to find as much data as I'd like on it, but basically that's just signifying that it's 7 nanometers, but it's with FinFETs. So it's actual like equivalent nanometer from like something like Intel, where they don't use FinFETs. It's technically a higher number, so it doesn't mean that there are leaps and bounds ahead of Intel or whatever, right? Because Intel's pushing to 10 nanometer, right? But that is a die shrink over their current 12 LP or LPP node that they've been using with Vega. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. Right there is that I think we could see some efficiency and performance improvements there. But the biggest part to me here that kind of blew my mind was the theory, and there's been some rumors going around, and there's a little bit of stuff backing it, is that this could be the first multi-die GPU. Navi might be. Now, we all know AMD has experience with multi-die setups, as well as their CCXs, which, inside a regular Ryzen like desktop CPU that is technically a single die, there's multiple CCXs in there that are linked together through Infinity Fabric. Basically, they can make groups of cores, right? But they also can do multiple dies and link the multiple dies with the Infinity Fabric, which is gonna, allows great bandwidth. So there's pretty low latency when it comes to adding more cores, so they can scale to higher core counts very quickly. That's why they're able to hit 32 cores on Epic. The idea is that the GPU, Navi, might be multi-die. And NVIDIA has already talked about making multi-die GPUs. In fact, we talked about this in the podcast probably 2 or 3 months ago or 4 months ago. So NVIDIA has already kind of gone around saying, yeah, that's probably a good idea, whereas Intel says AMD glued CPUs together. But let's not jump into that. Okay, so anyway, so it would make sense, though, that AMD would be the first to do a multi-die GPU, because they've already done this before.
Yeah.
They know how to do this. Like, boom, simple. They could just make it work. And Vega, but here's the question. So, to some people that don't know the architectures very well, that points heavily towards Navi being used, especially because in the actual documentation that they used for the roadmap, Navi is labeled as scalability being one of the benefits, which is exactly what multi-die chips would be. But Vega does have Infinity Fabric on it, and it is used for various things. So this could still be a multi-die Vega card that these rumors are going around about. Although I really strongly feel like Vega is going to be reserved for servers and probably mobile, and Navi is going to be what the desktop and workstation stuff pushes towards. Although Vega's pretty good on workstation front too. We've talked about Vega on the podcast before, but it's really good performance per watt as well as per dollar when it comes to its raw compute performance. It's just not built as well for gaming as it could be. It's really good for things like the server market and the workstation market, depending on what you're doing. Vega is not a bad architecture.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything you want to note about that, or are you good?
No, at this point, I just want to see Navi. That's really where I'm.
I want to see AMD next year. What I want to see is I want to see Volta desktop consumer GPUs that aren't necessarily ridiculously expensive either. Like the top end one will be, but I mean, I want to see stuff in the actual normal price range that's incredible. I want to see Navi next year that actually competes really heavily with NVIDIA in one of two or both areas that I'm about to list. Either the mid-range, low-end area competes really well with Volta on that, or I'd be okay with them competing in the really high-end area. Hopefully both. Yeah. But I'd like to see an architecture from AMD that really makes sense, because their software and driver department is on point. Many of you that watch consistently know I'm running an RX 580 in my system right now, and I mean, I'm really happy. Like, everything is super well built and robust. And back when I was on AMD previously with my 7970 and my R9 290, like, I was kind of disappointed with the way they were handling drivers. They just weren't that good. They had a lot of catch-up work to do. And when I switched to my 970, I was a lot happier. Well, that's kind of swapped back in the other direction, which is really good. So they just need a good architecture. And then next year, I also want to see rumors about Intel's new GPU. Rumors and leaks about that. That'd be interesting. But I think next year, I mean, it's starting to shape up like it might be a really interesting year in terms of GPU and in terms of CPU. Intel's rumored to be announcing an 8-core on the mainstream, although I have my doubts about that, although it's possible.
Weren't they supposed to announce or release certain new CPUs by the end of the year? I thought their original roadmap was end
Their
of the
roadmap's been so skewed up because of AMD releasing stuff. I don't even know anymore,
but their sped up roadmap was supposed to be end of the year, and they've just said nothing.
I think they sped up the roadmap, and then it shifted things around that weren't supposed to be. Yeah, like, see if you can find some info on that.
Yeah, because I thought it was 10 nanometer was supposed to be out this year. Yeah,
they're having a lot of troubles getting 10 nanometer out, though. Like, true 10 nanometer is not easy at all. It's tough. Okay, so another AMD bit of news here that I'm really happy to see myself, actually, is AMD EPYC CPUs are going to be getting used in some pretty high-end server stuff. So China's largest search engine, I hope I pronounced this right, Baidu?
Yes.
That's correct?
Yeah, Baidu.
Nice. Baidu, okay. So AMD EPYC server processors are going to be getting used in China's largest search engine. They handle well over half the market there when it comes to search, like Google, right? Now, they're all going to be single-socket EPYC servers, even though you can do dual-socket, although I think EPYC makes sense to be single-socket anyway. And all of the EPYC CPUs will be included, like everything from the 7601, which is the 32-core, 64-thread monster, all the way down to the 7251, which is the 8-core, 16-thread, still monster, but lower end.
And the 7601, along with a whole bunch of EPYC stuff,
is now EPYC available now?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah, as of a week ago, there was one.
The 7601's $4,500?
Yeah.
You know, when you think about it, that's not bad.
Yeah, that's their highest. They only have one motherboard.
Well, because if you look at, geez, that's kind of insane. Here, so if you look at, what is it, Xeon? Oh, what's the highest in 26 core? I think it is, right? I think 26 core is the highest that they go. Let's see.
Probably not $89.
No. Trying to find out. I don't remember how high the Xeon core counts go. off the top of my head, and I'm interested in knowing this. If Intel will load, that'd be really nice.
Yeah, the highest end available one is the 551, which is a 32 core, 2 gigahertz.
So it's not the 7601.
Yeah, that's out of stock.
Okay. That's out of stock, but it does exist. Okay, let's see. So going to through the Xeon family, let's see here. I'm still having trouble finding what I want to find. 28 cores. Looks like it might be the top. Let me see if I can just go to Newegg's website and find the top listed Xeon that they have, because I'm really interested in this actually. Because I want to see the comparison price-wise. That's the fun part. So let's go to core count. Actually, let's hit Intel. Intel, apply, and then hit most expensive. The highest price will probably get me there. Okay. That's a 15 core. That is not as... Okay, there's an 18 core. 22 core. So I'm seeing a 22 core as the highest right now. So let's just go with that, though, for example. That's $7,000 for 10 less cores. So you're looking at a price premium of $2,500.
Yeah.
For 10 less cores. Now, it's a monolithic die, and that is actually, yeah, that's not the latest architecture and stuff. So, again, I just wanted to point out pricing here is, like, it's all skewed up with Intel, with everything that's released on here. But as another example, it's $2,600 for the, I don't even know what the core count on this unit is. Come on, Intel, or 18 core. So there's an 18 core for $2,600. And when you think about that, you're looking at nearly double the cores for $2,000 more. But that's impressive that they're available on Newegg. That's something that actually intrigues me a lot. So thank you for pointing that out. Also, we have some comments. Dude JJJ Movies says that he wants to see Mirko on the WordCast next year. I'll try and get Mirko on here. And then, let's see. I am wearing the classic Batman shirt. Thank you, Dude JJJ Movies. How many episodes feature the Bat shirt? Probably like all of them, because this is just the shirt that I coincidentally put on before every time we do the podcast. That
or the one about it being Tuesday.
Yeah, sometimes I wear that Tuesday shirt too. And then he's saying 22 core is the highest. Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, I'm not going to even finish that comment. But he wants us to debate HP versus Sager.
I mean, depends.
That's an impossible debate because they don't manufacture the same types of machines. Sager is a high-end gaming brand. HP makes normal, like, work laptops as well as, like, Ultrabooks.
So obviously HP is better.
Yeah, exactly.
Because look, I can pick this up with a couple fingers.
I mean... I can try.
You can break your finger.
Oh no! This thing is heavy. That is true. But no, I mean they're a completely different category, so that's not something that can be debated very well. Because even their gaming laptops are nothing compared to what Sager makes, other than Sager's lowest end stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not even the highest end model that Sager makes.
HP makes laptops. Sager makes desktop replacements.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. Although Sager does make laptops too, but they specialize in desktop replacements. They actually make very good, fairly portable gaming machines though too. Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, HP does not win. No, that is incorrect. Dude, JJJ Movies. It just depends on what you need. Depends on what you need. You've complained about that one having problems so many times. Okay. So anyway, So,
haven't you had a ton of problems with that laptop?
That is Windows' fault, not this laptop's fault.
Most of my problems have been Windows' fault. I can't think of any that have been
That doesn't count. That doesn't count. Yours were HP's fault. So anyway, so I also wanted to mention something that was interesting though that I noticed when it came to the Epic news. So I don't think so. This is leading some people to believe this. This isn't just me. It was actually from the article that I read, which is from Extreme Tech. The news of what's been happening with AMD stock versus what's been happening with them in the server market kind of points to the fact that maybe investors don't really do much research before investing in companies and just kind of throw money where they want because their algorithms predict it might boom or whatever.
Or
now,
AMD got a lot of people jumping in because of fanboys wanting to invest. And then those fanboys pulled out when an investor pulled out, and now they're like, oh shit. Also, keep in mind, and I brought this up before to you, I don't think I brought this up on the podcast, in computing hardware, right now the money is in GPUs. And since their GPUs are not doing
That's true.
They are not going to do well.
But there's a lot of money in servers too. And servers rely heavily on CPUs still.
Look at NVIDIA versus Intel.
And it's true. But what I'm getting at is there is still, there has to be a CPU for every major GPU setup. And the CPUs tend to be high end, and it depends on the task still. But the point I'm getting at, though, is I feel like investors, and this is leading people to believe that investors don't do their research, not understanding that when you jump back into the server market as a company like AMD is doing right now, it's going to take 4 years before we see massive gains from the server market, because they don't adopt unless they need more power or their stuff breaks. They will not switch, and a lot of them are under contracts too. So, the fact that they got this is a really big deal for AMD, and it's good for them financially. But it's frustrating to me that investors seem to not understand that just because a year after a new architecture was announced, or 6 months after EPYC was announced, that we're not seeing massive sales on AMD's front. It's like you're not gonna. That's not how the server market works. You look at the desktop market. I'll upgrade my CPU every year, right? But actually not anymore. Yeah. But
it's just like when you look at it, like Intel's market cap has been going up, but slowly, relatively speaking. Whereas Nvidia's has boomed because of GPUs.
No, and GPUs are taking off. I'm not disagreeing with you there. I'm just saying,
where investors are looking to is, yes, CPUs are needed.
I think you're misunderstanding me. So, let me rephrase. So, what I'm getting at is a lot of investors, when EPYC was announced, invested. They pulled out after 6 months of not seeing them sell a bunch of the EPYC CPUs.
Or they pulled out because the GPUs didn't do well, which is where I think it is.
It's probably some of both, realistically.
Yeah.
Because the fact is, the consumer end, they're seeing sales. And the other fact is, even though Vega didn't do well as an architecture on the high end, it is selling like crazy. So as an investor, you wouldn't pull out for that reason. Yeah, but it's also only selling. All of them were selling out.
As far as they know, it's selling because of crypto, at which point invest in crypto.
True. But I feel like the CPUs is pointing in I feel like the lack of adoption in the server market immediately is disappointing to people. And it's like these companies aren't going to change over quickly because it's hard to change over server stuff. You don't update it very often. You run a storage server or something like that, or a web hosting server, you're going to have the same hardware for 6 years. That's fine. That's how it works in the server world, because you don't want to upgrade your stuff all the time. That's just not what you want to do. So it was just something that the speculation I'm getting at, though, is maybe investors don't do a lot of them don't do as much research as they should before investing into a company. But it's just an interesting thought.
Yeah.
So Chrome is starting to block ads.
Yeah, so we've known that this was coming for a while now. They started talking about this in June, I believe it was. But we finally have a firm date as to when this is going to happen. It was June that Google announced they would be blocking not all advertisements, not only their advertisements would be allowed, but everything considered a bad ad would be blocked. Now, who's determining those bad ads? Well, that is actually an advertising coalition. Essentially a big group of companies and I'm sure other outlets separate from just advertisers. But essentially, the goal is to make it so that when you're browsing the web, you'll still get ads, but you just won't get really bad ads. This is going to help with things like viruses. This is going to help with pop-up ads, very loud or flashy ads. This is also going to stop sites like Gizmodo, where you try and load up something on their website and it will put a page in front of you that you have to wait through. And they're not the only ones that do it, but they're just the one I bring up because they're a tech site and I had to look it up for the article.
It makes sense, yeah.
But so this is going to do a lot for consumers as far as giving them a just general better experience. And I think a big goal with this is to get it so that consumers want to use AdBlock less.
Right.
Because the whole reason a lot of people switch to AdBlock is having those really bad ads. And so if we don't see those when they are there and they show up less, then it's a win-win. Oh.
I'm replying to a comment on Twitch.
Okay.
I guess didn't want to interrupt you, but I guess I can also reply in person. So I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm sorry, but he asked why can't he drop some bits. We're not a Twitch affiliate yet. I need to apply to do that soon because I think we actually fully qualify now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, bits can't be dropped. Also, Fake Mayonnaise says praise the Lord.
Yeah.
So I figured I wanted to mention that because that was an important statement from him apparently. Because fake mayonnaise. Yeah.
So back to what I was saying. So this is not coming with a new Chrome release because currently Chrome 64 is scheduled for January 23rd and 65 is March 6th, meaning that very likely the code for Chrome 64 will have this in it.
Yeah. Yep.
And then they'll do a staged rollout. So like February, when they go to release this, February 15th, it's not going to be everyone. You won't just immediately see the switch over. Instead, what will happen is it'll be, 5% of their users will get it. And then another 10% the next day. And then 20% the day after that until everyone has it. But that way, if there's any major issues at launch, it's not a problem.
I actually like the way that they're doing this.
That being said, though, what I don't understand is why they aren't tying it to a release and then giving the beta version, the people that want to test things.
Giving that, yeah. I agree. That would be nice. That would be nice. Plus, I mean, actually, I need to install a Chrome beta. What's wrong with me? I don't even have it installed. But
I mean, it'll overwrite you can only have.
Oh, that's right. You can only have
one. So you could have Chrome
could have
beta or Chrome Dev, and Chrome Canary. Chrome Canary is the nightly.
I believe you can also have a 32 and a 64-bit version. Separate.
I think so.
I think, but it's hard to get a hold of the 32-bit at this point. But I've switched to Firefox Quantum for most of my browsing. But so I guess I could swap over to the beta and do some testing and write some articles on it since it's not my primary browser anymore.
But yeah, so with that, that's the big things is as far as ads is like flashing, auto playing audio, pop-ups.
I actually like the way they're doing this. Now, of course, a lot of people are like, well, of course, none of Google's ads will.
But that's because...
But it's like, because theirs aren't intrusive.
Yeah.
Google's ads aren't bad. So anybody that's interested in how bad Google ads are, go to our website. It's linked in the description. And you'll see ads that are not intrusive. There's one on the side. And there's two at the bottom that, yes, I know, don't align correctly. That is not my fault. They are supposed to be here and here.
Fix it.
But instead they do that. No, it won't work. I need to look into some of the code. Anyway, so I just wanted to give you guys, a heads up if you want to see, like, Google's ads aren't particularly intrusive. But, when you've got autoplay ads and pop-up ads and video, it's super frustrating. And it's frustrating on multiple ends because it's frustrating for me on a user point where I go to a website and it's like, I just want to read your content. Why do I have to scroll past 3 ads and click an X in order to get to read your content? Like, I'm here to read your content. The ads don't need to be in front of where my eyes are trying to look when I'm trying to read it. It pulls me out of the reading when there's an ad this big in the middle of a freaking paragraph. Like, at that point, like, I feel like just stopping at that paragraph and being like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Or I've had times where I thought the article was done because there was an ad at the bottom. Yeah. That's why we don't do mid-article ads. But also there's from the standpoint of me as a producer of content, and it's like I don't want people to use all-in-all ad blockers because my site ads aren't bad at all. They're completely unobtrusive. They make me a little bit of money, not enough to be paid out very often right now. But it's something. And but as we grow as a company and stuff, it's like it frustrates me to have everybody using ad blockers. But I understand at the same time why they do. Now, I take the time to whitelist the majority of sites I go to, but most people don't do that. Yeah. So...
Yeah, and this really is just meant to be a good middle ground. When you look at the companies that are on here, too, like, if you're worried about, like, Google blocking ads that aren't theirs, well, something to keep in mind is that just between Google and Facebook, they account for 85% of the digital ad market.
So the majority won't be blocked.
And both of them are board members of the Coalition for Better Ads.
Yeah.
Other board members include Microsoft. So there's like another 2% of the ad market.
Yep.
But yeah, there's a lot of companies on here, especially when it comes to the board. It accounts for the vast majority of the ads on the internet.
Yep.
Realistically, this just stops the scummy ads. Another thing I want to bring up as far as the way this works is it's not what you'd expect. It doesn't just straight block ads.
Yeah.
It actually blocks them on a site-by-site basis. meaning that your site has to get reported, marked as violating the rules for 30 days in a row before it gets blocked.
Yes.
And if you use Google's like web tools and Google's search pages and stuff, they will notify you if you are violating them. Yep. At which point, it'll tell you why it was violating it, and you can fix it. Yep. So if you're running with a custom, like, or if you're going through like some other ad group, I'll use the example Techno Buffalo. The guy who runs it was very open about this too. They got stuck in a bad contract for ads, and there wasn't anything they could do because they couldn't like buy out of the contract. Yep. They were stuck in it, and it ended up creating a terrible experience for especially their mobile users. Yeah. In that case, they would have been notified. Now, obviously, in their case, they were stuck in a contract. There was not much they could do.
Yes.
But he knew so much so that he was openly talking about it on his YouTube channel that their ads were terrible and creating a bad experience, and they couldn't fix the experience. And having something like this built in, while yes, it would have cut off the revenue from that, it would have fixed the experience. It would have made their site usable.
Which would be
because their site was in some cases unusable. I went to their site a couple times and had like full screen ads I couldn't close out of.
Yep.
So it's a mixed bag, but I think that ultimately this is going to be for the best and lead to less ad block. Once I get this, I will uninstall ad block and just see how it goes.
I will too. Yeah, I will too. I wanted to mention something. So Alien Technology, he's been on here several times. He's actually a moderator. So hi, I wanted to say hi. Yeah, glad you were able to catch the stream too, man. Yeah, I apologize for it being gone for so long. I don't know if you caught the stream last week, so I figured I'd give a heads up to maybe some other people that don't know too. We missed several weeks. In fact, was it 3 or 4 weeks of streams? I can't even remember. I think it was 3.
Holiday?
Yeah, we had holiday, and then oh, that's right. So we had a stream that was audio only because we were having issues with the streaming quality. Then we had no stream for the holiday. Then the next stream we did, we couldn't get working correctly either. Turns out I was accidentally streaming to Restream's London servers because my OBS settings got reset, and I forgot to change that one thing, and so we were streaming to the London servers and couldn't figure out our issues. Huge props to Restream for helping me out with such a stupid mistake and being super kind and looking into it like instantly for us. But after doing our troubleshooting, and then after the 20 minutes that it took them to help us, or 15 minutes, it was really pretty impressively quick. We realized it was just too late to start. And then the next time, after everything was figured out, we had a beautiful issue where Comcast was having issues streaming. Upload was super inconsistent to the point that we couldn't even do an audio podcast. So just a heads up to you, Alien Technology, so you know what's been going on. Okay, so anyway, continuing on though here. So Geekbench data confirms Apple throttles CPU speeds as battery degrades.
Yeah, now that was originally what I put the title in when I did this yesterday.
This is actually really cool. Actually, I like that they do this.
I think they should have been upfront about it.
I agree. They should have been upfront. I'm glad they are now, but it's good.
So Apple has admitted it. So realistically now it's Apple confirms that as the battery degrades, they throttle back the CPU.
They change back its clocks, but it's not just to keep the battery life the same.
Yes, it is in part also to prevent the phone, especially the 6 and 6S, from just straight shutting off. Yeah. Because there was a problem that people had reported where the 6 and 6S... Now this part I want to specify before I continue. Apple hasn't confirmed this part. They've only confirmed that they throttle it. And
right.
But they didn't specify...
But it's pretty obvious at this point.
So there was a problem where as batteries had degraded on the 6 and 6S, people would notice that at like 30-40%, their phone would just shut off. And that's because between
it would act like as if it was out of battery.
Yes. Yeah. And that's because as between the low percentage of the battery and the degraded battery, it couldn't handle the voltage needed for the processor, and so it would just shut.
Yeah. So one of two things would happen. So either the battery, the battery would. I don't want to use the battery senses, but you know what I mean. The battery would sense that there is more voltage pulling than can be given, so it just stops.
Yeah.
Or the other option is, so CPUs and in this case, system on a chip are very, very, very voltage sensitive, and if that voltage isn't maintained at the exact voltage they need very specifically, especially if it goes under, they just shut off. They're just done, right? And so it makes sense here why they were just shutting off suddenly. And how do you solve that? You underclock the CPU and have it pull less voltage.
Yeah.
That's why, like, if you look at high-end motherboards for desktops, they have, X amount of phases, VRMs, right? That is to get smoother power delivery, which helps with overclocking because you can run higher voltages consistently without a problem. So I do like that they do this. I think this is something they should have talked about directly to people in, like, a blog post or something.
Because I think it should be more than that. I think that, and someone had mentioned this in the comments too, that Apple needs to be upfront about when throttling mode kicks in. There should be a thing in the battery section in the settings that indicates that your CPU is being slowed down, and I think it should be indicating by how much.
Battery health, good or whatever with like a percentage battery health, and then CPU throttled due to battery health X percentage, like minus X percentage. Yes. I would like to see something like that.
If people know it's because of their battery, then they can go into an Apple store, which is what Apple's going to suggest, or they can ultimately replace the battery themselves and not have to buy a new phone.
Right, exactly. And I mean, realistically too, though, for some people it would incentivize them to go, oh, okay, it's time to buy a new phone. Yeah. So, I mean, realistically, either Apple's going to get money from the people that try and go in and get the battery swapped out at the Apple Store, which they're going to have to pay for, or they buy a new phone, unless you're tech savvy enough to do it yourself, but that's a niche market. Also, Alien Technology and Chuko also, they both said that they had a 6S and a 6, respectively, that did that. Yeah. Chuko was saying his got to 28% and then just shut down, like just off.
Now, we already knew that there was...
Alien Technology says it does say when your battery is having issues in the settings now. That's interesting. I hadn't heard that.
When your but it doesn't specify the CPU throttling. And that's what I think. That's what I'm trying to bring up.
You want that to be added into it.
Yes, that part needs to be specified because a lot of people have thought that like Apple's just slowing down their OS as software
to make them update.
Well, they literally did slow down the OS when 10.2.1 came out because they literally added a throttling mode.
Yep.
But
it wasn't to incentivize you to update to a new phone.
The other thing is that this literally hid defective batteries because what happened was. We already knew that the 6S in some cases was getting battery replacements because of defective issues.
Yes.
However, Apple literally claimed that the 10.2.1 update reduced the unexpected shutdowns by 80%. That's not because it fixed the problem. That's because it slowed down the phone.
Which makes and also
so Apple hid it for almost a year.
And the other hidden thing behind that is you're getting worse performance, but also it's going to look like, their battery life continues to be the same for a long period of time. Because everybody knows, like, there's a lot of people, especially people that don't understand battery technology particularly well, that say, I have a problem with Android phones because a year in, the battery life's crap. Well, the reason your iPhone's battery life isn't crap is because they slowed it down enough to compensate for that. Even though that wasn't directly the reasoning for throttling it is, hey, we want to give you better battery life. Although there could be an aspect to it there. Again, they just admitted that we throttle. They don't necessarily give all the nuances of why, whether it's related to voltage regulation or whether it's related to battery life, because both could be an incentive. It could be some of both. It could be one or the other. Because I could understand them wanting people to feel like they're getting the same battery life out of the phone too. So,
all in all, it's just, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. Apple needs to be more than just upfront that they are doing it. They need to, when it goes into effect. That's just how it should be.
Yes, and I can agree with that.
No ifs, ands, or buts about that.
I don't like companies being secretive about things like that at all, honestly. Also, Chuko said every phone that he's gotten from Apple's had a bad battery, so he switched to Samsung. Yeah, I've actually had really good luck with Samsung's battery degradation quality over a long period of time, unless it's a Note 7, because, then it just blows up. No, I had a Note 7 too, but no, Samsung tends to use pretty good cells. LG seems to as well. I can't attest to TCL, which manufactures the BlackBerry that I'm running here, which is also running Android, of course, but also, Alien Technology wants to get an opinion from us. So, he's asking, what do we think of the new iMac Pro?
I wish it was upgradable.
Okay, that's the thing, So it's really cool, and it's actually priced fairly well. But there are a few issues with it, and if Apple hadn't already announced that they were going to be releasing an actual Pro desktop machine rather than just a Pro all-in-one, I'd probably have harsher complaints against them.
Yeah.
But the fact that they've said, no, we're going to make something that really satisfies you guys later, makes it a little more justifiable. Now, I think it's really cool. It's got the 5K display, which is great for editing and whatnot, depending on what you're doing. It's also especially great if you edit 4K footage, being able to see the 4K footage in real 4K while having space to actually do your edits on the timeline and stuff like that. So it's a good machine.
Mm-hmm.
I do dislike the lack of upgradability on a pro machine, though. Something, that you might need more power later, especially if you're somebody that, say, like you do YouTube, but you're not doing, like, PC-oriented YouTube like we are or whatever, and so you want to use Final Cut, because Final Cut admittedly has advantages over, like, Adobe Premiere Pro. So you want to use Final Cut for your editing. So you're obviously on Mac, because you have to be on Mac to use Final Cut, or Hackintosh, but we won't talk about that. So you're going to be doing all your editing on Final Cut, and you're not a huge YouTuber. So you buy a iMac Pro, for $5 or $6 grand. Like, that's all you can afford, okay? And then you realize you need more performance later, and your channel's blown up, and it would really benefit you to have more performance. Now you've got to go spend 10 grand to get the new one, the more powerful one, and you have another one sitting around that can do nothing. So that's my first issue with it, is I think the upgradability is kind of lame. I do think it's fairly impressive feat of engineering to be able to cram the hardware in there that they did. Albeit we have not seen the 18 core yet, so we'll see how noisy it is when the 18 core is in there under load. The highest you can get right now is the 10 core. So my other thing about the iMac Pro, though, is a lot of pros, they like to pros, as we say, but people that are actually professionals, not people that are just doing like we're like consumer, prosumer or semi-pro, but actual professionals. And some of them do use Macs. A lot of them are using custom hardware and stuff if you're really up there. But if you're using Macs, like you want to have your own specific display that you pick out. You don't want to use Apple's because theirs isn't good enough. It's good, but it's not good enough for what some of the people need. And in the situation where they have the iMac Pro, if they want a really good display, like they have this big box sitting over there that they can't, that's just kind of in the way, Yeah.
The way I kind of differentiate from you on one thing, though. So, like, they're coming out with a Mac Pro for most of that.
They are. They are. And again,
Pro,
that's why I said a lot of these are, I'd be more angry about.
The iMac Pro is a niche computer, the way I see it, for certain users who are like that display, want to go with that display, potentially multiple, because that's one of the big things Apple's, like, touting, is, like, you could plug in a couple more 5K displays.
Yes.
But it's meant to be, the way I see it, a middle ground computer.
And in that sense, it is meant to be prosumer. So that's understandable in a way. I also wanted to, so a few comments here. So Alien Technology is saying he's waiting for the new Mac Pro. I'm curious, what are you doing? What kind of work are you doing? Curious why you use Mac. Nothing against you, just curious.
Probably Final Cut.
Probably, I'd guess Final Cut. But I'm interested in knowing. That's why I ask. And then he says, you heard you can't even change the RAM. Yes, that's correct. You can't change the RAM on the iMac Pro.
Correct.
Chuku mentioned that in Australia it starts at $10,000. That's insane. And then Alien
that
Technology.
sounds about right for Australia.
I guess that does, but that's just so much money at that point. And then Alien Technology mentioned that he has a 2010 Mac Pro that is still going strong. It's a good machine still. It's just it still wasn't it wasn't meeting what. Or that's the 2010 Mac Pro. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's like the real Mac.
Yeah, that's the good one. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's the good one. For some reason, I was thinking Trash Can, which disappointed people for the same reasons that the iMac Pro, hard to upgrade. It was upgradable, but it was hard. And just overall, I like the idea of them coming out with a true Mac Pro in the future. I will personally never be a Mac user. That's just me. It just doesn't suit my needs correctly. I might get one someday to try it out, to do reviews and comparisons on, of course, which is something I'd like to do once I have the money for that. But it just doesn't suit my needs very well. But I can completely understand people using it for things like Final Cut and stuff, right? So it's interesting. Also, Alien Technology, the Trash Cam was a disappointment. It was a complete disappointment. It was pretty much a flop. It was unfortunate. Some people needed the extra power though to do, if they're editing 4 or 8K footage. So. MKBHD, yeah.
Another thing that I want to talk about, since we're on the topic of Mac and Mac
we don't have
apps,
that many huge topics left, so we can address these comments for sure.
There was some news that Bloomberg is reporting on. Now, this is not public, like confirmed by Apple News or anything like that. But it looks like Apple is looking to go the way of Microsoft and create a single app experience where essentially you develop one app and it works for iPhone, iPad, and Mac.
And that's an interesting direction.
I don't think that
one company
things like Final Cut are going to be,
No.
obviously,
Yeah.
but...
Those are professional apps. They
Yeah.
really are. But I think that if anybody can pull something like that off, it's Apple, because they have such
no
tight
doubt.
control over the hardware and software.
And think of what this will do for the iPad.
I think this will turn the
will allow
iPad into a
iPad
potentially productive device.
I think this will allow the iPad to replace the base MacBook completely.
It could.
Well,
and in fact, you know, if
you
I
can-
were to buy a Mac right now
Mhm.
as like a machine to use, obviously I wouldn't buy a desktop. I would probably actually go with a MacBook Air myself.
Ew.
Because it's more comfortable
Ew.
to type on than the MacBook.
But it's gross.
How is it gross?
Look at it. It's old.
I think it's beautiful still, to
Ew,
be honest. That was
bezels.
actually one of the PC designs, or not,
It's got bigger
Mac
bezels than
designs
your
that
laptop.
I fell in love with that design,
It's
though.
got bigger bezels than your laptop.
I doubt that. It's close, but I doubt it's bigger.
If you take into account that it's got bigger side bezels, it makes up for the chin on your laptop, and it's about the same.
Okay, I give you that. The chin on this laptop's pretty huge. Actually, they could fit an 18-inch in here, and I'm mad they didn't, but I understand 18-inch G-Sync panels are hard to come by, or
It's
impossible.
gross.
I mean, yeah, but I still like the... I don't know.
It's still
I just-
$1,000.
I know, that's true. But anyway, yeah. Let's see. So let's see. So Chuku says, yeah, he'll never be a Mac user. Yeah, you know, I mean, if it suits your needs, then cool. But if it doesn't, then whatever. Alien Technology also says he has a Ryzen computer that he's made, but he uses the Mac for Final Cut. We were right. So yeah, and that's totally understandable. I mean, realistically, like, I like Premiere Pro a lot, but the level of hardware that you need to properly do work on Premiere Pro is a little ridiculous. So I can understand doing Final Cut, and Final Cut has other advantages, simplicity and stuff. I don't think it's quite as robust as Premiere Pro, but it's a great editing program. But I mean, you know, looking at my machine, like I have a 16 core with a planned set of 128 gigs of RAM, and then I'm going to be also upping to multiple SSDs. I'm going to have 3 SSDs for editing in specific. That'll be dedicated editing SSDs. It's insane the level of power that you need to properly edit.
So I was gonna finish though. So with that unification thing,
Yes.
with Mac and iOS, as of right now, that's expected to happen with the release of iOS 12 and the new version of OS X later this year.
Okay.
So we very well could be seeing a big shift in how apps for the Apple side of things are made.
Right.
And that's going to be really good for
It's
them
going to be
because they
interesting.
already, in not every case, but in a lot of cases, have better apps than what's on Android.
Yeah.
And if a developer can spend their time making an app and it'll work on everything on Apple,
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
And
that helps with, because honestly, Macs have not been doing very well in recent times of sales. That could help with that in some ways too. It might cut some of the portable machines, but making things universal could help in somebody being able to buy one machine that does it all if they are gravitating towards using a desktop experience or with a full keyboard.
I also think that long term, there's no doubt in my mind that Apple will prototype out the idea of a phone that can be a tablet and a laptop by connecting to other hardware. We've already seen other companies work on that.
I mean, that's been done for a long time.
But there's no doubt in my mind that Apple will prototype that out and test it and see if they can get it to the Apple level quality that they want. If they can, and they have apps that work for everything, that's a game changer.
That is.
If you have one set of code,
that's a pretty big deal.
And that's something that can be on your phone and be your phone, tablet, and computer.
And I love that idea. And I think Google can approach that in some ways with Chromium OS, right?
I think it needs a lot more improvement.
A lot of work, but yes, it could be done. So addressing a few more comments here. So Chuko was asking if we've seen the new Surface Pro. So to correct you guys a little bit, so the Surface Studio is the one with the dial that you can put on it. It's the desktop. The Surface Pro is the tablet that you can attach the keyboard to, and then there's the Surface Book, which is the laptop that has the detachable top. I have played with a lot of Surface products, not the Studio, but I have played with the Surface RT, the original Surface Pro, I think the Surface Pro 3, I think I could be remembering that one wrong, and both of the Surface Books, thanks to a friend of mine who ends up buying the majority of them and testing them out. And they're really nice machines. I like them a lot. Again, I haven't played with the Studio. I'll make a few comments on that in a moment. But I think for me, though, that the issue is Microsoft hasn't been in the hardware game long enough to understand how to polish things properly. And so they all have these little quirks. Certain keys not working properly, or like crashes when you remove them from the dock or something like that. Or as an example, on the original Surface Book that I was playing with, when you launched games, it sometimes wouldn't switch over to the dedicated graphics because you had the high-end model with a GTX 960M, and it wouldn't switch over to the dedicated graphics card, so it was still using the integrated graphics on the Intel GPU, which was kind of horrible, honestly. Really slow and not fun experience. There's just little quirks that they would have, like they would overheat and stuff like that, or they would sometimes they would turn on in your bag, come out of sleep mode, and then start to get warm and waste your battery. And the latest thing being the Surface, the new Surface Book has up to a GTX 1060 in it. So, and a quad-core Ultrabook class CPU. So it is a total beast, and I was actually like, whoa, this is a machine I'd consider buying to maybe replace this monster here, until I started to realize that it has one kind of major issue. So the power brick doesn't give it quite enough power. So if the machine is under load, what will happen if you're playing games and stuff, and it generally doesn't happen in the balanced performance plan, it's only if you switch to the high power one, from what I understand. So it's not something that will affect the majority of users that don't ever mess with anything. But that charger can't actually put out enough power to keep the machine charged under load. So it would actually slowly drain its battery. And it's like, that's something where it's like, how do you overlook that? How do you not go, give it another 10 watts? Because it's close. Give it another 10 watts, Like, you don't need to keep it lighter to save 10 watts, for example. Like, make a custom power supply if you have to. Just please. And so it's like little things like that. The Surface Studio, though, from what I've heard, is really good and doesn't seem to have many issues. Chuko, are you asking if I would buy like the Surface Book or Surface Pro 4 or the Surface Studio, the all-in-one? If it's a Surface Studio, I would say yes. I'd say no to the other stuff unless you have a specific use case for them. The Surface Studio is actually a really nice all-in-one. I like it a lot. So let's see. Alien Technology was mentioning something fun here. So on his new computer, he woke up 2 weeks ago and his SSD died overnight. It was just gone. I'm assuming that was a new SSD. Yeah, fun. I'm assuming that was a new SSD because you said it was a new machine. Yeah, it was only a year old, and you'd recycle it from another PC, and it died in its sleep. That surprises me, actually. Do you remember the model number? Because Samsung has the best reliability record when it comes to SSDs, but Crucial, SanDisk, Toshiba, some of those other ones out there, or if you manage to buy a Radeon SSD, which is a Toshiba, they're pretty resilient. SSDs can handle a serious amount of writes now, to the point that there's a lot of people that say don't use an SSD as your swap file, which is, when you run out of RAM on your system, you have what's called your swap partition, which is where your system, if you're loading up more applications than your RAM can hold, it has to put that data somewhere, so it puts it on your hard drive. And people say don't put your swap file on your RAM, because then you're constantly reading and writing to the... don't put your swap file on your SSD, because then you're constantly writing to your SSD. It's to the point now, SSDs are so resilient, you generally don't have to do that. So I'm really surprised by that. Like you said, yeah, you've never had an SSD die on you before, and there was no warning. Usually there's smart statistics can pull up warnings about stuff like that. So I'm wondering if it was some kind of weird glitch and wasn't actually dead flash or dead like NAND itself, but was something else, like a dead controller that overheated for some reason because it didn't have a thermal pad in the right spot. Because that's interesting. I'm glad they replaced it for you, but that does surprise me because a lot of them can handle up to a petabyte of writes without being damaged now, especially because they have a lot of over provisioning. So when you buy an SSD, say like a 256 gig, it's actually closer to, like, as an example, 300 gig, because they actually have units of NAND in there, and the controller is designed to sense when certain areas are dying and move things over to that and switch over to that backup. So it's basically a backup section to make the SSD last longer. That is something that they don't advertise directly a lot of times, because they don't want people to assume, you know, this is my backup storage inside my SSD. It's more of a, it will last longer because of it, because NAND dies over time. But yeah, that's really interesting that it died on you, because again, SSDs have gotten good enough you can use them as virtual memory now, and you're not going to hurt them. And I have had to correct people on that before, where they say, oh no, you need to change your page file or your swap file, whatever you want to call it, your virtual memory, to your hard drive, because you don't want to damage your SSD. And it's like, that hasn't been necessary, I'd say, since like 840 Pro days. I used an 840 Pro for a long time, and it was being used as my swap file, and it's still on a friend's computer, still functioning. So yeah, Alien Technology is saying he's thinking the controller died because the BIOS wouldn't see it. That sounds like it might be a controller death then, yeah. Because oftentimes what the SSDs will do, if the flash is dead, they'll sense that, and they'll go into a read-only mode where you can't give them more data, but you can still pull your data off of them. So the fact that the BIOS couldn't see it hints to maybe a dead controller. So that's interesting. Just wanted to mention a little bit about that then. Interesting. Next news topic, though?
Yeah.
Let's do this.
U.S. has joined Microsoft and the U.K. in formally declaring North Korea the people that did the WannaCry attack.
Yeah, which doesn't surprise me at all.
No.
Yeah. So they've confirmed this to the point that, I mean, I think once that many big entities think so, it's probably right. And it doesn't surprise me, because those are the kind of attacks that we're going to see more and more. It's going to be less missiles and stuff. It's going to be more cyber warfare. And they were able to take down like hospitals and stuff in the UK, where there were people that potentially could have died from this. I don't know if there were any reports of anybody that actually died. You don't remember any?
We're not.
Yeah, okay. But it could have actually killed people. And so that's a terrible thing, you know, the reliance on technology.
One of the times that this happens, it will.
And that'll be bad. Things need to not be connected. Medical equipment needs to be air-gapped. Anyway.
The problem is that there are also benefits to it being connected.
There are benefits to it being connected, that's true. But I think...
And a lot of it was things like just the general computers they use for files
which was,
and stuff.
And that is like something that's not going to kill somebody, probably, but it's bad. It has the potential... You know, somebody
except when you can't get the data, and then you have to, if they don't have room for physical files because they're so used to it. There's so many different things that can
go wrong. It's
realistically, they should be updating their computers.
They should be. And the other thing what I was going to say is the actual medical equipment that's attached to people. You know, obviously they have a lot of that stuff network connected, so that somebody's, you know, their heart stops, the entire hospital knows that their heart stopped. But a way around that would be having something that is air-gapped from the network, meaning it's not actually connected to a network, but have some kind of system where it's only transmitting data, it can't receive data at all. So it can transmit a warning, but can't receive back anything. It has to be physically touched.
Depending on how that's done, though, from my understanding, there have been setups that they tried to do like that, and were still compromised.
Interesting.
In the past, not like for hospital equipment specifically, but just in the past, there have been attempts at like one-way things. Realistically, updating is probably the most important thing you can do.
Yeah, I agree.
In something that has to be able to send out data.
Yeah. So it was just an interesting little piece of news that probably isn't surprising to everybody. WannaCry it was a pretty terrible thing, but I'm actually more worried about the Reaper botnet that's being built up. Also, did you hear about the Mira botnet? Remember the Mira botnet that took down a bunch of the U.S. For a while?
Oh.
So
is it back?
Yeah. So here I'll tell you. So there was so the Mira botnet was and that's MIRAI, was a botnet. I think it was a year and a half. Yeah, it was a little over a year ago when the attack actually happened, if I remember correctly. where there was this huge botnet of over 300,000 bots. It might have totaled to over 600,000. I can't remember. It was a large amount of bots that were IoT, Internet of Things devices, right? So they were pretty easy to compromise. There isn't much security there. Huge botnet that got out of hand. And so this, I was going to say Moira from Overwatch. But anyway, this Mira botnet managed to take down Dyn, I think it is. Dyn DNS. Let's see. Yeah, Dyn, D-Y-N. They're a huge DNS provider. In fact, from what I understand, other DNS servers pull from them. They're huge. Well, somebody DDoSed them to the point that it took them down. And a large portion of the U.S. had no internet because they were technically connected, but they didn't have any domain name, domain name server. For those of you who don't know, when you enter like google.com, so you have to go to an IP address, which is a set of numbers, and numbers and letters if it's an IPv6 address. But when you enter that, your computer connects to a specific IP address that it already knows. That's called a DNS server. And when it connects to that, the DNS server says, oh, hey, google.com matches this IP address. Here you go. And your computer goes to that IP address. It's instantaneous. You basically don't notice it's happening. So when a DNS server is taken offline, though, when a DNS server is DDoSed, and they have huge DDoS protection, so that tells you how insane the Mira botnet was. 300,000 bots is a lot. They were generating terabytes of data being thrown at this thing. The internet's basically shut down for people because links and stuff are all based on domain names. So interestingly enough, the Mira botnet, there was actually 3 college kids admitted to it. That they did it. Now, you'll never... Did you hear about this? So the reasoning behind the development of the Mira botnet was these 3 college kids, like not really kids, but 3 college people, that owned a Minecraft server, okay? Now get this. This is funny. So they were making a profit on their Minecraft server. But from what I understand, they wanted to take down other people's Minecraft servers for a variety of reasons. One of the reasons being getting more people on theirs. The other reason is that they can get other people off the net, they can win a game of capture the flag in their Minecraft or whatever, right? So they developed this botnet to do that. Okay, now obviously it got out of hand. In fact, there are Minecraft DDoS protection services that you can buy that attempt to reroute DDoS traffic away from your server so your server can still be accessed. There are various different services that you can get on websites and stuff like that to prevent DDoSing, right? So this is pretty funny. So they actually, this Mira botnet had been built to be so powerful that it was actually taking down the DDoS protection services because they couldn't take that much traffic. Yeah. And they're literally built to just take traffic. That is what they're built to do. They couldn't handle it, and they had to say, sorry, we can't fix this. Wow. Done. So obviously it got out of hand, and they were also considering starting to sell their Mira botnet as a DDoS as a service for Minecraft servers. So they pleaded guilty to this. Obviously it got into the wrong hands. They were not the ones that took down Dyn DNS. So what I wanted to point out here, though, all of this goes back to me what I said IoT Reaper earlier. That's what scares me more than things like WannaCry. DDoS attacks are horrible and unpreventable, right? So, I mean, to a point, unpreventable once they get to a certain size. If Mira, which was between 300,000 and 600,000 bots, was big enough to take down some of the biggest DDoS protection services on the planet, what is a DDoS botnet going to be able to do with 3 million bots is the estimated amount that we could see IoT Reaper hit. I think it's at over 1 million right now. You can take down anything, anywhere in the world. Just annihilate it. So that's something that I get scared of. Also, there were a few comments that I wanted to address. So, Chuko said when he first came to the stream, he thought that this was the Asus Predator laptop. And he's like, how do you afford that stuff? So, I will say this is a Sega machine. This is the MP9872. This can actually be spec'd out to be slightly higher end than the Predator laptop, albeit just without the ultra-wide screen. So it's a little bit more backpackable. My model here isn't quite that high-end. I'll list the specs in just a second. But I actually bought this on a loan to build some credit. But this is not my primary machine. This is my machine I use for podcasts, mobile gaming, or if a friend comes over to game. My main machine is a much higher-end workstation gaming machine. But the specs of this machine, just to throw them out there really quick. So this is, again, the MP9872-S. It's running a 1080p, 120 hertz, non-G-Sync panel. I should have opted in for the G-Sync panel. I know, I'm stupid. But it's got Intel desktop 6700K, which is something that the Predator does not have. It does not have a desktop CPU. It's kind of weird. It has the overclockable mobile CPU, but this is a 6700K with 40 gigabytes of RAM that I upgraded into it myself, an Intel 600p 256 gig NVMe boot SSD, and two 2 terabyte hard drives in a RAID 0 configuration, so 4 terabytes of usable space at faster speeds. Love this thing. Oh, and a GTX 1070. Love this thing. It's a monster. You can actually configure this up to 2 GTX 1080 desktop ones, and the power brick for it is insane. Let me pick this up here really quick to show you guys. I've done a video on it if you're interested in knowing more data about it. Hopefully this is visible. This is the power brick for it. If you get the multi-GPU setup, it takes 2 of these. So just a few fun facts
Only
about that.
2. I want 12.
You want 12?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I'm glad you want 12. So anyway, yeah, this thing's a monster though. So I love this machine here. But yeah, it was not. It's not the Predator. I wouldn't buy a Predator myself, even if I had the money for something.
Ooh, you're throwing shade.
This was around $3,000. But anyway, okay. So it's just I don't think the Predator is a good machine myself. That's what I'll say.
Throwing shade.
I mean, you can't fit it in a lot of backpacks. You can fit this in a lot of 17-inch laptop backpacks. Yeah. It's uncomfortable to lug around to the point that it's actually unnecessarily large. It does not have a desktop CPU. It has a mobile overclockable CPU. As far as I think it can be configured to 64 gigs of RAM, so I think that's still on par. But there's just things about it where it does not justify the $9,000 price. The reason it's so expensive is because they had to make a custom chassis and a custom display for it. Whereas Sager uses the laptop chassis from a company called Clevo that makes them for various different PC brands. So this chassis you'll actually find from others like Exotic PC, I think is one of them, and a few others like that. They'll actually use this, like this is one of their chassis. This is the highest end chassis that Clevo makes. So these are actually upgradable. Like I can upgrade this with a second GTX 1070 or even swap them out to two 1080s. Potentially upgrade to like a 7700K CPU, although that would require a BIOS update. I talked to Sager directly about that, and they said it should be possible, and that there would be a BIOS update that you could get, but I never found that on their site. Anyway, I gave up on upgrading this and decided to just continue on to a real desktop. Alien Technology is saying he needs a new webcam. Which one do we recommend? He's been looking at the 922X and the Razer Kira, and he was trying to find one with Intel RealSense 3D in it so he can use Windows Hello. Those don't have RealSense 3D though. So, not the Razer one. The 92, let me make sure I'm remembering the 92XX correct to make sure it's what I think it is. Because there's the 922 Pro, which is, why am I not, I'm not remembering the 922X. Is that the same thing as the Pro? Yes, it is, I guess. Yeah. Yes, okay. Alright, just the model number, I was like, okay, yeah. I would say the C922. That's what I would go with. Logitech's webcams are on point. If you're using it for basically anything other than super high-level stuff, you're going to be really happy. So, what I will say is, my recommendation if you're planning to actually do high-end stuff, like you want to do quality video conference calls and you're using like Skype for Business or something that actually has decent quality, or you're doing like Twitch streams and you want higher quality, I'd recommend doing what we're doing right now, getting a capture card and getting a camera that has HDMI output and getting an HDMI cable for your camera as well as a power adapter for your camera so you can run it for multiple hours and do it that way. So like what we're streaming from is my Panasonic G7 right now. Through HDMI, through a capture card into my PC here. But if you're looking for just a webcam that's good, I'd go with the C922. Chuko wants to know what country we're in. We're in the United States. So,
yeah.
Yep. So let me check the Twitch chat. Not any more comments there right now. So, shall we move on to Blue Alerts? This was interesting.
Yeah, so the FCC announced an expansion of the national alert system. This is what what essentially is used for when you get like Amber Alerts on your phone.
Amber Alerts or Silver Alerts.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they are now adding an additional one called Blue Alerts. These are going to be used to notify people when nearby police are in danger. So think like if there's an active shootout or if there's a police officer missing or anything like that. The idea is that, for one, it's going to help keep citizens out of the area if there's something like a deadly shootout going on. But also, if a police officer goes missing, it allows people to keep an eye out for them.
Yep.
All sorts of things. This is
I like this idea.
Yeah.
I do like this.
Yeah. And the reason I wanted to bring this up, this isn't so much like a big news thing, but it was more so like I wanted you guys to know, because you are now going to get an additional alert on your phone potentially.
Yes, you might.
And
get
it's
blue
especially
alerts.
nice to know what this is, since it's going to be about things like shootouts.
Yeah, it could save your life to see that blue alert and get away from that area.
Yeah. So with that in mind, so this goes into effect for 1 calendar year over the emergency alert system, which is like when you get alerts on your television.
Right.
And then 18 months on the wireless emergency alert system, which is like for mobile devices.
Yep.
And
Is
then
I
it would be
like
renewed
this.
from then on out. There was already like 18, I believe, states that had been doing this for a while. This is just now nationalized.
Yeah, which is cool. I do wonder. I've never actually gotten a silver alert, which is interesting.
Neither have I.
So, for those that maybe aren't in the United States, we have our national alert system, primarily used for phones, but also they have electronic billboards that display this stuff. They have your TV that display this stuff, like live TV that's over the air and stuff. Basically, what it is it's an alert system. Amber Alert, as far as I understand, was what started all the
Yes.
whole national system. And what Amber Alert is a child's been kidnapped. Is what it's used for. It might be used for potentially other stuff, but I don't think so. So what an Amber Alert is a child's been kidnapped. Basically, they say this is what the vehicle looked like. Maybe this is what the person looked like. If you see them, call 911 immediately. Just try and save the kid. And so basically, the attempt is, hey, everybody within like a 200-mile radius needs to know about this, so we have everybody looking for this person to try and help find them. Then there's silver alerts, which is the same thing, but it is for missing generally older people, like Alzheimer's and stuff like that. Blue alerts is now being added to it for the police. So,
yes.
It's a good system, actually. It has saved lives.
Amber Alert is also getting, and this was like super new, this was announced last year, but Amber Alert is at some point getting an upgrade where they will be adding like links in the Amber Alert that goes to your phone, where you can pull up a link to view a picture of the missing child.
Good, that's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. Interesting. All right, we're getting close to the end here. I don't know if Felipe is around for our food question, though. Food question of the week. Should we make one up?
No.
Why not?
Because we got one more topic.
All right, we got one more topic. So, UPS one-ups PepsiCo. So this was interesting. What did they one-up PepsiCo with?
So I think it was last week we talked about how PepsiCo had decided to order 100 Tesla semis.
So what's interesting here is every company that orders them orders more than the last company.
Yeah.
I still love how this is a competition of, well, we have more electric semis than you.
I mean, look, I'm very happy.
I love it. It's great. Yeah, competition is beautiful.
But yeah, 125 Tesla semis have been pre-ordered.
By UPS.
Yes.
Yeah.
This puts the total estimate at about 420 that we know of. There is very likely more that we just haven't heard about, because some companies don't talk about it. There's also smaller companies that might only be pre-ordering one or two. Like, there was a Redditor on the Tesla subreddit who runs a small distribution company. He said that he has pre-ordered one, because by that time they'll need a new truck. So, I mean, we're likely seeing more and more of that, but this pre-order alone is about $2.5 million.
Which is a lot of money. But when I read that, I wanted to note something fun here. So the revenue in 2016 of package operations, specifically, this is not including supply chain and freight, was $51 billion. So for them, it's like, yeah, we'll buy that to show off, right?
Yeah.
But it has a long-term future for them, too.
Yeah. Before the Tesla Semi was ever announced, they've had goals for reducing greenhouse gases, along with goals for, they said, like, by 2020, they want 25% of their vehicle purchases to be either running on alternative fuel or to be just general high-technology vehicles, meaning things like potentially automated driving.
And if you look at their current vehicles, this is good. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's cool, and I want to see the next company order 150 to 200.
I was still really...
what was it? Walmart started with 10, right? They were the ones that started it, weren't they?
They didn't start it. They were the first major company that...
Okay. I love this, though. I love this competition of buying more Teslas. It's
I was
great.
still really hoping that Coca-Cola would have pre-ordered 101
I like that.
to quite
Although,
literally one up PepsiCo.
for a dumb reason, I hope that Disney orders 101. For 101 Dalmatians, right?
I got it.
Okay.
No,
I'm
they're
glad
too
you
busy
got it.
making weird-looking animatronics.
That's true. And buying Fox.
That's true.
So Alien Technology said he didn't know what a silver alert was. Yeah, I just learned the other day because I saw it on a billboard. So yeah, you're welcome. It's good stuff to know. Also, Alien Technology says, thank God for Tesla. Agreed.
No, thank Elon Musk for Tesla.
Yeah.
Praise be unto Elon Musk.
They seem to be the only car company that wants to revolutionize the industry. While I agree with that statement, I wanted to mention, though, I think that a lot of the large car companies, GM, Ford, maybe Fiat, are dabbling around in electric vehicles more than we probably know. Because they see what Tesla's doing. They just aren't talking about it. Because they see what... So Tesla started it.
That's why...
Yeah, so
he's
again,
the one,
thank Elon Musk. Yes, they're the ones...
Tesla's the ones that want to revolutionize it.
Yes.
They just don't want to fall behind the other companies.
Yeah, okay, that's true. So again, like I said, I don't disagree with that statement, but I think we're going to see competition in the electric car market within the next 4 years.
Another big thing is
from
a lot of
more companies.
what we're going to see is thanks to the fact that Tesla opened up their patents.
Yep. Yeah, that's true.
So,
another thing. Porsche is actually... please don't pronounce it wrong, Daniel. Porsche. So they actually have an all-electric... They have an all-electric car that's going to be coming out soon. I'm a Porsche fan, guys. I have owned one, and it got in a wreck, and it made me sad, and I don't have one right now. But anyway, I have owned a Porsche. It's pronounced Porsche, but he likes to troll me and call it Porsche or Porch, and it's like the one thing that actually makes me... But anyway...
It's pronounced Porsche.
Go to Porsche's YouTube channel. So anyway, well, you can't play it out. Not Porsche's YouTube channel. I tell him to go to Porsche's YouTube channel. He literally Googles porch. So anyway, but yeah, so Porsche is going to be coming out with an all-electric car, though. So, I mean, there are companies that are dabbling in it, but I do agree with you. Yeah, Elon Musk kind of is helping start that, and the rest are playing catch-up. There are some other companies that have made, all-electric cars before Tesla was down in that kind of more like affordable car range, like the Nissan Leaf and stuff. But I think he's the one doing the best job, and his company's the one doing the best job at it. But like the Nissan Leaf, for example, it's actually a pretty good car, assuming you don't need to go more than like 50 miles in a day. So, and then Chuko, yes. So Tesla has now created a truck. It's a semi-truck. Pretty awesome. We talked about it in one of our previous podcasts. It's really cool. So, yeah. Also...
I'm assuming he's talking about me.
How old is he?
22.
How old am I? 21. Yeah, he might be talking about me because I said I've owned a Porsche. It was a Porsche 944 in 1983, so it wasn't a super expensive one. I'm not rich.
No, but hey, his current vehicle has 2 air conditioners.
It does have 2 air... Well, it has 2 evaporators and 1 compressor.
Whoa.
So it is like 1.5 air conditioners, but really 2 air conditioners.
But how many did your Porsche have?
I don't know. I didn't own a Porsche.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You should probably get one.
I should probably get one. No, I don't like Porsche. I'll buy a Porsche any day, though. So, what was I going to say? Okay, so any other topics, or is that it? Are we done?
I think that's it, yeah.
Let me check my feed to make sure there's nothing huge. Let's see. So, looking through, see if there's anything big. This is interesting regarding, we've been talking about net neutrality a lot lately. Obviously, those of you that live in the U.S. know that net neutrality just got repealed. It sucks. We're not going to talk about that again because it just happened, so we don't need to tell you guys about that. But something that's interesting is in the U.K., they're actually going to make it, by 2020, a mandatory legal right to have access to 10 megabit or higher internet. 10 megabit minimum download speed, which realistically 10 megabit isn't particularly fast or expensive for companies to implement, and by 2020 I think is a good time frame for that because it's already cheap enough they could realistically push that out now because they're also a smaller country, but by then they could easily do that. And in my mind, I like the idea of that, just giving access to everybody. As an example, Google Fiber they had their free internet service. Let me check the pricing on it and the speeds on it. Or not the pricing. So the pricing was free, but you had to pay for all the setup equipment, which makes sense. But there was an option for the free internet. I can't remember what the speeds were, though. I can't remember if it was 5 or 10 down. Let's see here.
I'm pretty sure it was 5.
I thought it was 5. There we go. Let's see. Google Fiber. So there was a free 5 megabit plan that they ended that offer in Kansas City. So they haven't expanded that in a lot of other places, which is unfortunate, but they tried. 5 megabit downloads enough to be on the internet.
You did have to pay like $300 for installation.
$300 for installation.
Which I think is why it failed, is because at that point you might as well pay. For most people, if you can't afford internet, a $300 all-at-once fee is not feasible, and they're most likely to spend $10-$20 a month, even though long-term it's going to cost more. They'd rather spend that on super cheap, crappy internet from whoever their local provider is.
That's true. I also I liked the idea though. It was just that the hardware is just too realistically expensive to not make them pay something for it. Google would lose too much money. Yeah. But I mean, hey, free internet for life is pretty nice too. Yeah. To know that no matter what, you'll have usable speeds for the foreseeable future. Chuko says we need to make up another topic because he wants us to continue.
No. I have to go to bed.
We actually do. We have to work in the morning, so we have to head to bed pretty quick here because here in our time zone it's 11, which is when our podcast ends. 5 minutes to ending time. Okay, this is big news. Mad Cats might be coming back from the dead.
I mean, whatever.
Who bought them? They fired because Mad Cats filed for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, but it looks like they might be making a comeback, which is interesting. Mad Cats made some pretty interesting hardware. They made some of their Rat series of mice, were some of the most unique ones out there. Realistically, I owned their highest end one, which was the I think it was the Rat Pro X, I think is what it was called. It was a magnesium framed modular mouse. It was really nice. I ended up going back to my favorite mouse of all time, the Logitech G700, in this case the S model, which is just a redesigned version. But they made some really interesting hardware is the point I'm getting at. But yeah, it looks like they might be coming back.
It was posted by another company, so we have no idea.
Yeah, it could be another company, or maybe they got bought out and it's just the Mad Cat's name that's going to be getting used, which is possible. But yeah. Do JJJ Movies says it's still going. Yes, it is, but we're about to end. It was. Yeah. So thank you everybody for watching. That's the end of the WordCast this week. Obviously, check in next week. But if you go to the links in the video description, there's social media links as well as a link to our Patreon page down there if you're interested in giving us a monthly contribution to support the channel. All the money that goes into Patreon goes directly into the channel. We haven't raised enough to do like a payout yet, as far as I know. I haven't checked it super recently, but once there is, I will probably make a video talking about that and showing off whatever was purchased with the Patreon money, because it goes directly into either better camera hardware or stuff to review. But also down in the description, there's a link to our website, and on the website, you can now go to the WordCast tab. If you hover over it, you can click subscribe to WordCast, or the actual just standard WordCast tab has it too, where you can enter an email address, and that'll allow you to get an email when we usually about 2 hours before we start the stream, assuming I don't forget, to let you know that the stream is going to be happening so that you can get a friendly reminder. That particular list that I have set up under that WordCast subscribe is only used for subscribing to WordCast. You won't get emails with spam or ads or products that we might be selling or articles. It'll just be a reminder for this specific podcast or netcast or videocast or whatever you want to call it. So make sure to check out the links in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe. But yeah, thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you guys next week, assuming Comcast isn't having internet issues again, which I hope not. We're 2 weeks in a row now without that. Yep. So woo. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the stream. And
bye.
yeah. Oh, one last thing. This stream tomorrow should be available on SoundCloud. If you look for, I'll make a WordText SoundCloud. It doesn't exist yet, but you'd see it. And there'll be a download link so that you guys can actually download the podcast if you want to like listen to it off the air in case you work in an environment where you don't have internet or something. But again, thank you.